Path Media. I was a minimum wage movie theater usher that made good and became a top earner in my network marketing company. Now, after 16 plus years in the profession, I'm finally teaching myself how to leverage the internet with online marketing and social media marketing to continue to grow and expand my business. My name is Ronnie Cruz, and this is Path of the Network Marketer.
All right, welcome back to the show. In today's episode, we are going to talk about the vacuum law of prosperity and how it affects your marketing efforts. Now, the vacuum law of prosperity is a principle that I learned years ago from an amazing individual by the name of Randy Gage. That's right, the legendary Randy Gage. My sister and I bought his prosperity training program years ago. I mean, it must have been 15 years ago or so. But in that training course, one of the principles he teaches is the vacuum law of prosperity. And it pretty much states that in order for you to have or receive new things into your life, you have to make room, you have to make space, right? You have to create a vacuum. The example that I'm actually living right now in my life is my clothes, right? Now, I'm not a fashionista. I don't keep up with fashion trends or anything like that. I'm not a shopper. I purchase clothes based on, need, comfort, and functionality. Those are the main criteria. Beyond that, I could care less. So I shop very, very infrequently. Now, the thing is, I get rid of clothes even less frequently than that. So over the years, what has happened is my closet has just continued to get more and more crowded. And so recently, I've become really more intentional about, it's been crowded. Like I have clothes, I'm looking at it right now. I have clothes in there that I've had for more than 10 years, many pieces of which that I don't ever even use anymore. So it's like, why is it even sitting in my closet? So I've become very, very recently more intentional with using clothes that I never use and then getting rid of it because I know I'm not going to use it again, right? So one last hurrah with this piece of clothing that I'm wearing, and then it's out the door to create a vacuum in my closet so that I can update my clothes, right? So that I'm not wearing clothes from 10 years ago. Again, I'm not a fashionista, or I'm not fashion forward by any stretch of the imagination, but I can't walk around with clothes that's 10 years old, right? Unless I want to look like a relic, walking around looking like a classic car or a vintage movie or something like that. But anyways, so how does this all apply to your marketing efforts? Well, I was inspired. I'm talking about this because I was inspired by an episode of Jenna Kutcher's Gold Digger podcast that I listened to today. And she was an amazing podcast, by the way, number 616. One of the things she talked about was really kind of whittling it down, right? Less is more is what she was saying. And I bring this up because with marketing, online marketing especially, there's so many different aspects of it, right? You have your influencer marketing, you have your social media, you have your content creation, you have your online funnels, you know what I mean? You have paid ads, you have all kinds of avenues with internet and online marketing that it can become very, very overwhelming, especially if you're trying to tackle multiple avenues, right? When earlier this year, when I started this crazy adventure of learning how to leverage the internet for my marketing efforts, I tried to tackle everything at once, right? I was doing a YouTube every day. I was doing, I had my Path of the Jedi podcast. I was doing all the social medias. I was trying to post 3 times a day on TikTok. And at that time, we had pretty much dial-up speed internet at the house. So it was just super overwhelming. And I began to really lose sight of why I was doing any of it in the first place. So, one of the things that I've had to do recently is create a vacuum in my marketing efforts. And this is what it's going to allow you to do. I've really kind of, taken my focus away from social media and developing my influence and all that stuff. I use social media to promote the podcast. Podcast is where I landed, right? Like that's what I really honed in on. That's what I'm happy about. That's what I get excited about. And therefore it's easier for me to do every day because I love it, right? I enjoy it and I love it. And I'm able to do it with ease. And so the space that's created in my marketing efforts, now that I'm focused less on all the other stuff, that energy and effort and time allows me to hone in and really fine tune what I want to focus on. Again, the podcast, and then developing the marketing around the podcast, right? So if you find yourself overwhelmed with your social media efforts, with your online efforts, with whatever marketing that you happen to do, just whittle it down to the thing, and Jenna makes this recommendation on that episode, is that just scale it down to the thing that you enjoy the most, right? Because that's the thing that you're going to be able to show up for every day more consistently with, right? You're going to be able to do the thing you love the most, the thing you enjoy the most with more ease, and therefore you can show up more consistently doing it. And consistency, as we've talked about on the show, is really one of the most important, if not the most important factor in all your marketing efforts, in your online efforts. So whittling down and creating the vacuum, right? Removing some of the things that you're doing allows you to actually get better at the one thing that you can focus on, the one thing that you enjoy. If you don't, your efforts are going to be spread so thin, and yeah, you might have a presence in all those different kind of medias and those different marketing efforts, but you're going to be so ineffective at all of those, because again, your efforts and your focus are going to be spread so thin that you're really not going to be able to get good at any one single one of those, right? So make a vacuum, eliminate as many of those things as you can, and pick the one thing that you enjoy, that you can show up for every day, and you'll start to really be able to get good at that thing and hone that thing until it's very, very finely tuned, and therefore your marketing efforts are going to be much more effective than it would be spread out through 5, 6, 7 different avenues. You can eventually move into those spaces, especially as you develop. You just start developing, more systems around your marketing efforts online. But until then, really focus on getting good at one before you move on to the next. Right? Create that vacuum, and that allows you the space to grow in the one thing that you need to grow in. So that's the message from me today. Man, I'm really having a hard time talking today. That's the message from me today. The vacuum law of prosperity as it applies to your marketing efforts. So more to come from me tomorrow. Until then, be well, be safe. We'll see you in the next episode.